F-Zero is the forgotten darling of Nintendo. Hundreds of first-party titles have been released since the last Furiously Fast racer saw the light of day. Now, the series lives on only through Smash and homages from Mario Kart. But what really happened to the F-Zero series? Well, in 10 minutes or less, that's exactly what you're going to find out here today on the Mega Man Cave. F-Zero is one of my favorite racing series of all time. Blazing fast hover vehicles, face-melting guitar riffs, and psychedelic racing tracks all help to separate F-Zero from the rest of its competition. What other 90s racing game featured the ability to race alongside 29 unique AI competitors? The lore in the series is also quite extensive, with each character housing a unique backstory, adding to the overall enjoyable experience. F-Zero almost has somewhat of a cult following over time, which begs the question, why haven't we had a new release in 14 years? Waiting for the next F-Zero game has become like waiting for the next Tool album. I'll believe it when I see it. To hopefully understand Nintendo's mindset for leaving F-Zero in a stagnant state, let's go back to where it all started. The original F-Zero was actually released as a launch title for the Super Famicom in Japan, and really set the bar for the futuristic racing subgenre. It featured an extensive use of Mode 7, the familiar background graphic rendering we all know and love from the console. Nintendo further capitalized on the success of F-Zero with the release of F-Zero X on the Nintendo 64 in 1998, and it was generally well received. The graphics were a bit generic, but with the amount of racers on the track and the infamous randomly generated X-Cup, there were plenty of additions that more than made up for it. I mean, it was the first racing game to run at 60 frames per second. Shigeru Miyamoto actually stated in an interview that F-Zero is the fastest racing game ever, with vehicles reaching speeds in excess of 1,000 kilometers per hour. That's blazing fast! Although not garnering a huge fan base in Japan, F-Zero X was actually the first 64 game to receive the 64DD expansion. That's that disk drive that we all know how it turned out. F-Zero Maximum Velocity became the defining racing game for the Game Boy Advance, and I personally have fond memories of playing the crap out of this in elementary school. Released in 2001, it didn't have any of the classic F-Zero characters because it was set 25 years in the future, but it was super enjoyable in its own right. To close out the major worldwide releases were F-Zero GX on the GameCube in 2003 and GP Legend on the Game Boy Advance just months later. The former was hailed as a successful game, incorporating a story mode rare for games of its type, and the latter was one of the defining racing games on the Game Boy Advance. So, with several successful games under their belts, what the heck happened? Well, there are a plethora of good rumors, but ultimately everything seems to land on the shoulders of the one and only Miyamoto himself. He's often cited difficulty in trying to create something new for the series going forward, as a reason to not make one at all. Well, to my speculative mind, that seems like a cop-out. There was also talk about the inherent difficulties with incorporating the Wii's motion controls into the game for a subsequent installment, which with the existence of the classic controller and GameCube adapter, I also kinda call BS. I understand motion controls would be a little bit cumbersome to have in an F-Zero game, and it may make it extremely hard to play, but come on, Nintendo! What about the DS or 3DS? In a handheld market that saw unbelievable success with Mario Kart games, you mean to tell me that F-Zero wouldn't have been a fan-freaking-tastic idea? Let's get with it, Nintendo! It's like it's been so long at this point that they don't even know how to approach it, how to market it. But what they don't understand is the game would sell itself. Some say the series grew stagnant because GX didn't sell that well, particularly in Japan, and that Nintendo didn't want to force anything that wasn't great. Star Fox Zero, anybody? But wait, there's hope! In a 2012 interview with the French site Game Cult, Miyamoto was asked why there hasn't been a new F-Zero, and his response was one of extreme surprise. I'm really surprised to hear Twitter's opinion because since the first episode on Super Nintendo Entertainment System, Many games have been made, but the series has evolved very little. I thought people had grown weary of it. Come on, man. A 2013 IGN review showed Miyamoto restating that he doesn't know what else to do with the series. It makes me want to scream, just put out a huge poll if you don't know what games people want to play. Make it have a proper online mode with an expansive story and added extras. 30-player online death race would be absolutely incredible. In a 2015 interview with Smosh Games, Miyamoto reported that F-Zero was in fact not dead, and that there could be a potential future installment if Nintendo could develop a specific controller interface for a future console, which we know now is the Switch. And even more recently, a trademark for the series was filed in May of this year, but no E3 announcement was made. Deflated yet again. So there you have it. F-Zero continues to be the red-headed stepchild of Nintendo, and with no definitive titles announced, we can only speculate on the future of the franchise. I firmly believe that the series will have a Switch release at some point, and it's going to help reinvigorate gamers back into the world of hyper-speeding hovercrafts. But, as with any of these forgotten gems, we wait. So guys, what games have you noticed that have been all but forgotten? Please leave them in the comments section below, and I'm sure I'll get to them eventually. If you've made it this far and you want to see more of this content in the future, be sure to subscribe, smash that like button, and click the bell so you're notified with each new video that I post. This is Kevin from the Mega Man Cave signing out. Catch you later.